What's going on YouTube? JT Born here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors, number 5. Rise Up, part 5. So this is the final issue, I guess, of Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors. Although the way this kind of ends, it seems like they're setting up a sequel series. But from what I can gather, this is the final issue of this little like mini series. They'll probably do a sequel of some sorts at some point, but this is like the conclusion to Godzilla, Monsters and Protectors. And so let's go ahead and talk about it. Well, first off, this one was written by Eric Burnham, artist Stan Schoening, colorist Luis Antonio Delgado, letters and design Nathan Wittick, supervising editor Tom Waltz, and editor Megan Brown. This issue continues kind of off the events of the last one. Godzilla is getting ready to kind of go for his final attack. The kid Cedric is still doing his Me Too vlogs, and he's also like telling the audience about how he saved the world altogether. It kind of, I was kind of wondering, like, okay, we only have like one issue left in this thing. How are these kids supposed to save the world? And the way that they do it is actually kind of interesting, and an idea that actually was kind of like popping up into my head for a while, what I think would be a cool concept for a Godzilla film, but we haven't really kind of gotten that quite yet. I mean, the closest we got is, I guess to compare it, is Godzilla versus Space Godzilla with Miki Saigusa and her psychic connection to Godzilla. And I guess kind of the Heisei series, Miki kind of has something like that. But here we get kind of a direct like human to Godzilla communication where they can kind of share each other's thoughts. I actually think that's a clever idea and something that I think would be interesting to explore. Maybe even in the Monsterverse, perhaps they use like some sort of that like psychic technology stuff that they used when like Ren Serizawa was piloting Mechagodzilla to communicate with Godzilla. I don't know. I just think the idea of humans kind of trying to communicate with Godzilla, like where they can share the same thoughts, would be kind of cool. And this comic actually kind of tackles that and wraps up the story. It does feel kind of rushed, but at the same time, the way they wrap it up is a bit different and kind of clever. It's not necessarily something I was kind of expecting going into this thing. Like, how the hell are these kids supposed to stop this whole thing? Like, oh, that's actually a really cool idea and something worth exploring. But anyway, so the issue opens up. We have the framing device, which, as we know, Cedric was there talking about how he's going to save the world the whole time and how super hip he is for this thing. Some of my favorite moments, though, like little bits, are little Easter eggs and nods going on. So you got the behind the scenes thing right there. Looks like a nice tribute to Haruo Nakajima's Space Amoebas. There's a little Mogera Easter egg there. So basically, most people have been evacuated. The scary thing about this issue is the Mothra twins, who don't want to be known as the fairies, who are quite dangerous, like, and kind of scary about how they don't try to convince people. They, in fact, force their will upon others. Like, they are psychically controlling everybody and the adults to kind of get their way. I don't know about you, but like the way the Mothra twins are portrayed in this, it's kind of villainous in a way, because they don't like try to convince people. They kind of force their will. So it makes you wonder why they don't just kind of like, why do they have to like ask the children when you kind of see them really forcing their will? Like they're mind controlling certain people to kind of do what they want to do. It is kind of a scary thing. But anyways, so they call to Mothra. Mothra shows up, which, by the way, the artwork is really gorgeous here. I really like this design of Mothra. Nice and poofy. Like the wings itself look really great. There's a bit of humor with people kind of flying the jet, and they see Mothra kind of show up there. The Lenival Corporation's still doing their thing, like, oh, Biolante's still alive somehow, and they continue the fight with Godzilla. I'm glad to see Biolante back, although I felt like Godzilla kind of nuked her out of existence. But we still get some more kaiju-sized action. Mothra shows up. I really like the design here. Got the little, like, it almost reminds me of, like, the mane on a lion. So I thought that was kind of cool. So they go, and they get close up to Godzilla, and then again there's a nice really moment of Godzilla, I guess, using his tail as a springboard, like to try and jump and crush Biollante. The art here is pretty solid and the action's quite good. Makes you really want to see like this type of Godzilla combat utilized in live action, or maybe an animation at some point. I thought that was kind of cool. And I also like how Godzilla has a bit of facial expressions. They're allowed to kind of show how he emotes a little bit more, because I feel like from what I've heard, Toho does not want Godzilla to be emoting as much for whatever reason, because they want to see him as a force of nature, but it still is a living, breathing creature. I want to see Godzilla utilize more facial expressions, and we can see more emotions of what's going on in there, but for some reason Toho kind of wants to limit that, which I think is kind of a mistake, because at the end of the day, I know Godzilla represents all sorts of things, but Godzilla is still an animal, and you want to see him I want to see more of his facial expressions, kind of get an idea of what he's thinking. So yeah, then they end up having their thing where Mothra shows up as Godzilla's ready to kind of nuke the whole planet out of existence based on their little nightmares. Mothra and the kids and the twin fairies is able to psychically communicate to Godzilla. They actually enter inside Godzilla's mind, which is something really different and new, like an idea that I think has a lot of potential going forward, and I'd actually like to see this kind of utilized at some other place. So yeah, basically the twin fairies, the kids, and Mothra have a word with Godzilla about, because Godzilla's pretty much had it with people like destroying the planet, because Godzilla is kind of the Earth's protecting system. When humans or kaiju or something act out of line, he's there to set things right. That is Godzilla's job. That is his role. He has a purpose for what he does. But they have a little talk. Godzilla's able to see kind of into the kids' minds, and because the kids are there to kind of like change the future, he decides, okay, I'll give humanity a chance right here. It's actually a nice way to kind of wrap up this little storyline, and it's exactly how the kids themselves save the world, because they are the future, and it's up to them to keep the planet in good shape, to try harder, make things more efficient, not really damage it itself. And that'll keep Godzilla happy, because again, he is like the planet's immune system, as this book kind of explains. And so yeah, that's exactly how the kids save the planet. And we get a bit of a kind of ending teaser where the Exilians show up. As you can see here, the Lonival Corporation was secretly working with the controller of Planet X, which I think is actually really cool and creative, because I did remember seeing a Ghidorah Easter egg at some point that kind of mentioned things about building mechs and stuff. But the fact that the controller of Planet X shows up, they're definitely going to be sequel baiting this thing. I don't know if it's going to be Godzilla, what's going to be called. Is it Godzilla Monsters and Protectors issue 2? Will we see the return of some of these other characters? And I use that in kind of quotation marks, because there really wasn't much in terms of strong characterization for these people. Like, Cedric is the main character, but all I kind of know about him is he does his little YouTube-esque vlogs. But there isn't really much of a big character arc for him going forward. Like, the other kids, was it Emily and Anderson? Really not much else to them as characters, are kind of just there. The Mothra fairies are a bit questionable, the way their portrayal was handled in this comic book itself. I mean, they're, in my mind, they're kind of borderline villains, the way they constantly force their will upon others, invade people's minds to control them. Yeah, I know they have a good cause, but there's some questionable things that they can do, and their powers are actually kind of scary, which makes me a little concerned, because normally the Mothra twins are there to kind of, they don't try to manipulate people. They try to explain their case, and that's kind of what makes them like wholeheartedly good. These ones are a bit of brats, and they kind of force their will upon others. Yeah, their mind control doesn't work on everyone, as we saw in I believe it was like a few issues ago with the head of the Lonival Corporation. But they're kind of questionable the way they're portrayed here. Godzilla himself, I like his portrayal in this. I thought the artwork did quite a good job. I liked the fact that Biollante was showcased throughout this series, because Biollante has been really kind of underutilized in the Godzilla franchise. So I got my Biollante fix. I had some pretty cool, funny like action moments. Like, I like the part where Godzilla jumps off the ground and lands on something, like, you know, using his tail kind of as a springboard. That felt like something you'd see in, was it Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, when he does the little jump onto Megaguirus. Like, that's what it kind of reminded me of. I like that bit there. The way the colors pop and everything, like when it gets to his atomic breath, I thought that was pretty cool. And I like Mothra's design as well, and I like how they wrapped up the conflict. Yeah, some of it felt kind of rushed. Yeah, there's some of that, what I like to call, how do you do fellow kids dialogue, where it's, you know, kids, like, it doesn't really sound fully like natural how kids talk. It sounds like an adult thinking how kids talk. But but it's kind of something there, and I like some of the nice little nods and Easter eggs and clever stuff kind of thrown into there, and the way they resolve the conflict was actually pretty cool. It's not a big climactic battle of sorts. Yes, Godzilla fights Biollante, but it's through a conversation, which is how it kind of wraps up, and it actually finds a way to utilize the kids into the story itself, because these kids are the future, and if Godzilla can see that they're willing to change to make things better, he's not going to do things, because they're going to grow up someday and be the ones in charge of things. So I like the way the conflict resolved itself there and how everything was kind of utilized. I could have used for some more character development for some of the kids to actually kind of make them stand out a bit more. But, I mean, it's only 5 issues. I can't expect everything to be perfect. I'm not exactly the target demographic for a comic like this, but I am glad I read it because I love Godzilla. I love a lot of what IDW has done. Definitely not their strongest story that they've tackled before, but it has some good stuff in here, like the art, the clever Easter eggs, the way it kind of resolves the conflict I felt was a bit fresh, and with the potential to see more going forward. I like the fact that the Exilians kind of show up at the end. I wasn't really expecting that, and has me excited for any potential future storylines about how they'll integrate Ghidorah. Will the kids still be there, or will we get kind of a new perspective in a future storyline? I don't know, but it's good to have IDW back, and I had fun covering the story for the past few months. I think there's another IDW Godzilla comic that I didn't exactly talk about yet, which came out like a month or two ago, but I think I'll probably talk about that sometime next. But anyways, what do you all think of Godzilla Monsters and Protectors issue number 5? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What are your overall thoughts on this little mini-series that IDW put out? Is it one of your favorites? Is it one of your least favorites? I want to know what you all think in the comments section down below. Personally, it could have been better, but I'm glad I read it. So I had a little bit of fun. It gave me like my Godzilla fix, because right now I'm going through Godzilla withdrawals with no new movies announced and Singular Point having come and gone. It's kind of up in the air what's next for Godzilla, but at least I have something with the comics. All right, well, that's all I got to say. I got to get some stuff done. Be sure to look forward to more comic book reviews in the near future and some other content on the channel. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.